10 things diabetics believe that are quietly making them worse. Dr. Adam Watanabe. There is something more dangerous than high blood sugar. It's the beliefs you carry about it. Over the years, I've met countless people living with diabetes who truly believed they were doing everything right. They were taking their medications, avoiding obvious sweets, checking their glucose regularly, and trying to be careful. And yet their numbers kept fluctuating. Their energy kept dropping. Their bodies felt older, heavier, and more inflamed. Not because they didn't care, but because they believed certain ideas that sounded reasonable. Ideas repeated in clinics, online forums, even by well-meaning friends, yet those beliefs were quietly working against their metabolic health. Today we're going to break down 10 things diabetics believe that may actually be making their condition worse. Let's begin with one that almost everyone accepts without question. Belief number 1. If my A1C is under 7, I'm fine. An A1C under 7% is often labeled as controlled, but A1C is simply an average of your blood sugar over roughly 3 months. And averages can be misleading. You can spike to 200 after meals and crash to 70 later and still average out to a decent number. Those spikes matter. Each rapid rise in glucose increases oxidative stress, damages blood vessel walls, and promotes inflammation. Repeated spikes strain the pancreas and worsen insulin resistance over time. True control is not just about averages, it's about stability. Stable blood sugar reduces nerve irritation, protects kidney filtration, preserves vision, and dramatically improves daily energy. Now let's move to something even more subtle. Belief number 2. Carbs are the only thing that affects blood sugar. Carbohydrates absolutely influence glucose levels, but they are not the only variable. Sleep deprivation increases insulin resistance the next day. Chronic stress elevates cortisol, which pushes blood sugar higher. Lack of movement reduces muscle glucose uptake. You can eat perfectly and still struggle if you are sleeping poorly, living under constant stress, and remaining sedentary. Diabetes is not just a carbohydrate issue, it is a metabolic regulation issue, and when you only focus on food, you may ignore the other silent drivers that keep your numbers elevated. We're just getting started. When you understand how these beliefs shape your daily habits, everything begins to shift. Let's continue. Some beliefs are comforting. They reduce anxiety, they make diabetes feel manageable, but comfort is not the same as truth. Beliefs number 3. As long as I avoid sugar, I'm doing enough. Sugar has become the villain. And yes, added sugar absolutely spikes glucose quickly, but focusing only on sugar creates a dangerous blind spot. White bread converts to glucose rapidly, refined pasta breaks down into glucose quickly, sweetened yogurt may contain as much sugar as dessert, even if it's labeled low fat. And here's something many people overlook. Large portions of starchy foods can raise blood sugar just as dramatically as obvious sweets. Even foods marketed as healthy, like fruit juices, granola, flavored oatmeal, and breakfast cereals, can create sharp glucose elevations. The problem isn't just sweetness, it's speed. The faster something turns into glucose in your bloodstream, the harder your pancreas has to work. Repeated over time, this increases insulin demand and worsens resistance. True blood sugar management requires understanding how your body responds, not just avoiding dessert. Now let's address something deeply ingrained. Belief number 4. If I take medication, I don't need to worry as much. Medication is a powerful tool. It can lower glucose, it can protect organs, it can save lives. But medication does not replace metabolic health. Some drugs push more insulin out of the pancreas, others help the kidneys excrete glucose, some improve insulin sensitivity, but none of them cancel the impact of chronic overeating, inactivity, sleep deprivation, or visceral fat accumulation. If lifestyle continues to drive insulin resistance, medication may need to increase over time. I've seen patients rely solely on prescriptions while their waistlines expanded, their energy declined, and their inflammation worsened. Medication should support your efforts, not substitute them. When you combine medication with strategic nutrition, muscle activity, proper sleep, and stress regulation, results multiply. When you separate them, progress stalls. The next beliefs become even more subtle because they involve things people believe about aging itself. And that's where things often begin to unravel. Now we enter a dangerous psychological territory because these next beliefs don't just affect your blood sugar, they affect your motivation. Belief survive. I'm older now, high blood sugar is just part of aging. This is one of the most destructive assumptions I hear. Yes, insulin sensitivity declines slightly with age. Yes, muscle mass naturally decreases if not maintained. Yes, metabolism slows, but diabetes is not inevitable. High blood sugar is not a required milestone of turning 50, 60, or 70. What often changes with age is activity level, muscle stimulation, protein intake, sleep quality, and stress resilience. Muscle tissue is one of your largest glucose reservoirs. When muscle declines, your ability to absorb glucose declines with it. So blood sugar rises not because you are older, but because muscle has been neglected. The good news, muscle responds at any age. Even light resistance training 2 to 3 times per week significantly improves glucose uptake and insulin sensitivity. I've worked with patients in their 70s who lowered fasting glucose simply by rebuilding modest strength. Age influences physiology, but lifestyle determines direction. Now let's move to another quiet self-sabotage pattern. Belief 6. If I feel fine, my diabetes must be under control. This one is dangerous because diabetes can be silent. You can feel normal while glucose levels remain elevated for years. Nerve damage develops quietly, arteries stiffen slowly, kidney filtration declines gradually, vision changes subtly. You don't feel insulin resistance directly, you feel its consequences later. Energy fluctuations, brain fog, mid-afternoon crashes, poor wound healing, these are often normalized instead of investigated. Many people wait for symptoms, but by the time symptoms appear, metabolic stress has already been present for a long time. Data matters more than feelings. Regular monitoring, lab work, A1C trends, these provide clarity that emotions cannot. Diabetes does not always shout, sometimes it whispers, and ignoring whispers is how long-term damage accumulates. Now we're about to address beliefs that directly sabotage energy, which is something almost every diabetic struggles with. The next ones may surprise you. Now we move into beliefs that directly sabotage your energy levels. Because many diabetics don't just struggle with blood sugar, they struggle with exhaustion. Belief 7. Carbs are the enemy, I must eliminate them completely. This belief sounds logical. Carbohydrates raise blood sugar, so remove carbohydrates, problem solved. Except it's not that simple. When you remove all carbohydrates, many people replace them with excessive fats and insufficient fiber. Others eat very little overall, leading to fatigue, irritability, and muscle loss. And muscle loss makes insulin resistance worse, not better. The real issue is not carbohydrates themselves, it's the type, timing, and pairing of carbohydrates. Highly refined carbs spike glucose rapidly, but whole fiber-rich carbs like berries, legumes, and certain vegetables behave very differently. Fiber slows digestion, protein stabilizes absorption, healthy fats delay glucose release. When combined properly, even moderate carbohydrate intake can produce stable glucose curves. The goal is metabolic flexibility, not carb elimination. When patients reintroduce controlled, fiber-rich carbohydrates strategically, energy often improves, brain function improves, workout performance improves. Complete restriction can backfire long-term. Strategic balance works better. Now let's talk about something that drains energy in a completely different way. Belief NBA, exercise will fix everything. Exercise is powerful. It improves insulin sensitivity. It increases muscle glucose uptake. It reduces inflammation. But exercise alone does not override poor nutrition, chronic stress, or sleep deprivation. Many diabetics push themselves intensely in the gym while sleeping 5 hours per night, or they exercise hard and then reward themselves with high-sugar foods, or they overtrain, elevating cortisol, which raises blood sugar. Exercise is a tool, not a cure-all. In fact, recovery is just as important as movement. Sleep regulates insulin sensitivity. Chronic stress elevates cortisol, which signals the liver to release more glucose into the bloodstream. If cortisol remains high, your fasting glucose will remain stubborn, even if you exercise daily. The strongest improvements happen when strength training, sleep, stress control, and nutrition work together. Diabetes management is not about one heroic habit. It's about consistent metabolic alignment. And now we're entering the final 2 beliefs. These are subtle, but they quietly sabotage progress more than most people realize. We've covered beliefs about food, medication, sugar, carbs, and exercise. Now we're about to confront 2 of the most dangerous mental traps. Because sometimes the biggest damage isn't physical, it's psychological. Belief 9, it's too late for me to improve. This belief destroys more progress than high sugar ever could. Many people think once they've had diabetes for years the damage is done, that their pancreas is burned out, that their arteries are permanently damaged, that insulin resistance is irreversible. But research shows something powerful. Insulin sensitivity can improve at almost any age. Muscle mass can increase in your 60s and 70s, visceral fat can shrink, A1C can drop, inflammation can decrease, circulation can improve. Even small improvements in insulin sensitivity dramatically reduce long-term complication risk. You don't need perfection, you need progress. Even a 0.5% drop in A1C significantly lowers cardiovascular and neuropathy risk. The body is far more adaptable than most people believe. Giving up early guarantees decline. Strategic consistency creates reversal momentum. Now the final belief, and this one is subtle. Belief 10, I'll start when things get worse. This is the quiet killer. I'll fix my diet when my numbers rise more. I'll take it seriously after my next lab. I'll start walking next month. But diabetes doesn't wait. Damage accumulates silently. Microvascular damage begins before symptoms. Neuropathy starts before pain. Plaque builds before chest discomfort. Kidney filtration declines before lab alarms. Waiting for symptoms is waiting for damage. The most powerful time to act is before crisis, because prevention is metabolically easier than repair. Small daily corrections now prevent massive interventions later. And here's the truth. Diabetes management is not about fear. It's about informed action. If you recognized yourself in any of these beliefs, that's not failure, that's awareness. And awareness is the first step toward control. If this video challenged something you believed, type awake in the comments. I read every message. And if you want more science-based strategies to protect your energy, brain, heart, and blood sugar, subscribe to the channel. Because your metabolism is not broken, it's responding to signals, and you can change those signals starting today. See you in the next video.